This is Kurt from Lightshapers Magazine, and today I'm going to be walking you guys through an edit of a recent portrait I just shot. So here are some of the photos I shot out in Colorado. So today I'm going to be working on this photo. So let's open this up in RAW. So my camera settings for the shot were for my aperture 3.2, for my shutter speed 1/200th, my ISO 100, and I shot this on a Nikon D800 with a 105 macro lens. So here's a photo, just very sharp on her face, and then it just falls off into the background. So as far as my RAW settings, I'm probably not going to change too much here. So maybe I'll just bring up the temperature just slightly. My exposure is pretty good. Just increase it just slightly. And then for my contrast, I'll just bring that up just slightly. Highlights, I'm actually going to bring my highlights down just slightly. My shadows, probably just leave that as is. Yeah, so most of the changes that we're going to be doing in Photoshop, basically I just use RAW just to get some very just fine adjustments. So I think that's pretty good. And if you're wondering, I actually used a flash on this. I used just a speed light, and I kind of just angled the flash upwards so it wasn't direct, and it was just to give like a little pop to the image, because when I shot this it was like maybe an hour before sunset, so it was kind of getting dark, so I just needed a little bit of flash just as kind of like a fill. So I'll open this up in Photoshop. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I'm just gonna double click on my background layer, and I'll just rename this background. This is just so we unlock it. And then I'm just gonna create a duplicate. So Shift Alt Command N, create a new, Shift Alt Command E to just duplicate it. And I'll just call this background copy. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of think through my editing process and kind of determine what my end result is going to be. And that's going to like dictate how I edit the photo. So for this, I'm not really going to do much to this. She definitely just needs some skin adjustments. I think I'll just get rid of this piece of hair that's just kind of just popping out of her headband. And other than that, it's mostly just small adjustments. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my Actions panel. And I'm going to start with just correcting the color cast on her skin. I already created this action, so if you guys want to download this, you can do that. Just head over to our website. I'll post a link for it. So I'm just going to play this action. And what this action is going to do is just going to create a more natural skin tone. A lot of times when you're shooting, you might not have the correct white balance, and just because of like different lighting conditions, your skin just might take on different hues depending on your environment. So for this, it's just saying select the highlight color. So we're going to hit continue. And we're just going to hit a highlight on her skin. And hit OK. And then we'll hit OK. And now it's saying select a shadow color. And then so we'll hit continue. And there's not really too much shadow here. So I'm just going to go for her, like the darkest area on her skin. So probably right about there, so hit OK. And then just OK again. And now it's just saying you can adjust the opacity of both the shadows and highlights, or you can adjust the whole group. So hit continue. So here's our group. So if I hide this, and then do it again, so you can see it's given her a more natural skin tone. The only thing it might have messed up with is just the background, which I mean I like that background, how it's like more warm and sunny. So what I can do is I can just click on this group here and I can create a layer mask. And now I can go to my brush tool. And what I can do is I can So I'm just brushing right now on the area that I want to bring back to its normal color. So we're just going to bring some more warmth back into the background like this. So you can see now that we keep the background, but we also keep the nice color in her skin as well. Next I'm going to work on her eyes. So I have another Photoshop action that helps me out with this. So just click on eye enhancement, hit play, and again you guys can download this as well. So it's saying adjust the flow of the brush to 2% and then paint the areas of the eyes you want to lighten. So just hit stop. Flow, to adjust the flow, shift 02 gives us 2%. So now our brush is on white, that's what we want. Gonna zoom in. So first thing I like to do is just get the whites of the eyes. So I'll just do like 1 or 2 passes at most. Okay, so that's good. And now I'm just gonna zoom in onto her eye. And again, just reduce my brush size. And I'm just going to start painting. So I'll do a few passes and then I'll come over to her other one. And again, do the same thing. So I don't like to do like one eye exclusively and then go to the next. I like to kind of go back and forth just so you don't overdo one. And then I'll just come in here, go a little bit smaller and get more like a fine detail going here. And you can see as I do this, I bring out texture within the eye. And then I'll also get the catch light up here. And then I can zoom out, take a look. That looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit more on the right side. So I think it looks good. Okay, so I'll just hit play again. Now it says paint the area of the eye you want to darken, so I'll hit stop. So now I'm just going to focus on getting the ring around her eye. So I'm just going to do one pass, then I'll just come back, go one smaller, get the other side. So again, just one pass around. And then just reduce the size of my brush. And back around one more time. And then also what I'll do is I'll just throw some black back into her eye as well, just add some texture. And then the last thing is just to get her pupil. And then I'll just hit play and continue. Just saying I can adjust the opacity of each layer or the group. So that's width out and then width, the adjustments. So you can see what a huge difference that made. Alright, so let's see, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to work on her skin. So I'm just going to go back to my background copy. Just call this skin. So I'm going to come over to my spot healing brush tool, select that, and zoom in. So I'm going more for like a natural look in this photo. Definitely don't want to like over Photoshop this, so I'm just going to be pretty gentle on the skin retouching. I'm not going to do too much. Yeah, I hate photos that are like way over Photoshopped. I think it looks terrible. So I'm just going to go for more of a natural look. And I definitely recommend like you zoom out after a little bit just to get a better picture of what you did. When you're zoomed in all the way, you're only focused on such a small area that everything kind of like blends together. So I like to like pull back and just take a look at the image, and then I'll zoom back in and make my adjustments. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. Her skin looks pretty good now. Let's see, I'm just going to duplicate this layer. So Shift-Alt-Command-N, and then Shift-Alt-Command-E, just to stamp it. So I'm going to open up my Liquify tool now. I'm going to make a small adjustment on her chin, just so it's just slightly more symmetrical. It might have just been the lighting. But it looks like, you know, this side is just slightly bigger. I'm going to come use the default one, which is forward warp tool. And I'll just make this probably, I think that's a good size. And I'll try to click right in the center. And I'm just going to bring this up just a tiny bit like that. I think that's really all it needs. And I said okay. Yeah, so that's pretty simple to do. You can see the difference. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new group. And I'm just going to call this, call this shadows. And within here I'm going to create a new layer and then call this cheeks. And now I'm going to select my brush tool. So I'm going to hit my B. Now I want to pick a shadow color. And my brush, I'm going to make sure my flow is set to 100 and my opacity is at 100 as well. So now I'm basically just going to do some contouring on her face. If you've ever worked with a makeup artist, you've definitely probably seen her do some contouring on the model's face. And it's basically used just to bring out depth within her face. So I'm just going to work on her cheeks first. So you might have to do this a few times to get it perfect. I just didn't do that. So now I'm going to go to this layer. I'm going to change the blend mode to multiply. And now I can go just do a little bit more there. Actually, I'm going to erase this. Okay, so I'm just going to redo that one. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Now the idea here is just to start from like down here from 0 and you want to work your way up until you start to see this blend into her skin. You just want to start blending until you get the right spread. And again, this is all, going to be based on your own judgment. I think in the mid 50s. So we'll go like 55. So now what you can do is you can come to your opacity and you can reduce the opacity. So again, go to 0 and then just work your way up. And you can see it's just bringing some depth back into her face. So I'm going to stick with 80. So again, I'll create a new layer. And this one is going to be for her nose. So this one I'm actually going to go with a pretty small brush for this one. Okay, and then again, make sure this is on multiply for your blend mode. And then you can always come to your eraser if you need to, and you can erase if you need to. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my filter, blur, Gaussian blur again. And again, you're just going until you get the correct spread that you want. So I think that looks good. Hit OK. And then you'll just come to your opacity, reduce that, and then just bring it up slightly. So I think around 20 is pretty good. And you can just zoom out just to get a better look. There's it without and then with. So you can see it just adds a little dimension to her face. So you can also do this for your highlights as well. So I'll do that too. So create a new group. Call this highlights. And now we'll create a new layer within there. And we'll do cheeks again. So this time you want to select your brush tool and you want to go to the color white. And you're just going to do basically the same thing. This time I'm just going to do a triangle. And then my blend mode, I'm actually, instead of multiply, we're going to go with soft light. And then we're going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And then just bring your opacity down. And you can just slowly just work that up. So I think that looks good. So that just gives a little more brightness to her skin. And then the last one I'll do is I'll just do her chin. And then we go to soft light for your blending mode and filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Hit OK, and then you can adjust the opacity. Okay, so that looks good. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. So go to layer, new layer. Blend mode, we're going to change this to an overlay. And we're going to fill this with a 50% gray. And we'll just call this dodge and burn. Hit OK. So now if I paint black, it'll make her skin darker. If I paint white, it'll make her skin lighter. So what I need to do is I need to make sure my flow is like as low as it goes. So I'm going to hit Shift 0, 1. Okay, so it's on 1% now. So if I go white, I can brighten areas. If I go dark, if I go black, I can darken areas. So I notice under her eyes it's still a little bit dark, so I'm just going to brighten that area up just a little bit. Yeah, so I'll just paint white where I want to lighten. So it's just going to be very subtle. I don't want to overdo this. And you just want to be very gentle with your brush. I'm actually using a Wacom tablet right now, so it makes it a little bit easier to do the editing. And again, I'm just like adjusting my brush constantly. So I can get her teeth as well. Just brighten that up just a tiny bit. And I can go back to my black. I can just get around her nose. Again, it's just going to add some more dimension. I can do her lips as well. And then I'll definitely do her lashes here. It's just going to make her eyelashes just pop just a little bit. And then also her eyebrows. You see that's off and then on. So this is just like an addition to the previous two steps with the highlights and the shadow. So this is just more fine-tuned. So I'm just going to lighten up here just a tiny bit. And just get under here. We also might want to darken her hair, just add a little more contrast in there. Yeah, so I think that looks pretty good as far as skin. Just a few. So this is also great for just getting rid of some patchy skin. It'll help you blend it much easier. Okay, so I think that's looking good. So the only thing I think would be just getting this piece of hair removed here. So to get rid of this fluff of hair right here, what I did is I created a duplicate layer right here. So I'm going to call this hair removal. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit V, so now I can move this around. So I'm basically just going to move this over. So now what I can do is I can create a mask. So I'm going to create a layer mask. And now I can invert this, so hit Control I. And now what I can do is I can just come back to this piece of hair. So since I duplicated the background and just moved over slightly, so basically now everything is just pushed over slightly. So which means this background is now covering this piece of hair. So what I can do is just go to my brush tool, go to my white, and let's go So now I'm just going to kind of just paint like this, and you're going to see the background kind of just take over. So you can see it's basically removed it. I'll just do a little fine adjustments to this. Okay, so that looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply this mask. And now I can take these two layers and just combine them. So I'll just go to merge. So I'll just merge those two layers. Okay, so now what I can do is I can just come over with my patch tool. And if there's any like areas that didn't really blend well, I can just select it, just come over, and boom, it's blended. So it doesn't even look like, it doesn't look noticeable anymore. So yeah, I think we're almost pretty much done. The only thing I might do is just add a little bit of contrast. So just go to new adjustment layer, and we'll just do brightness and contrast. And I'll just kick up the contrast just a little bit. So the last thing I can do is just sharpen her eyes just a little bit. So I'll just go to my sharpen tool and set the strength to, I'm gonna do like 7. And I'll just get her eyelashes, her eyes. Just get by her nose, her eyebrows, and then her lips. And yeah, that should be it. So we'll go to the before. So here's the before. And then here's the after. So I think it looks much better. So hopefully that helped you guys. I'm going to include the raw file as well, so you guys can download that and you can practice around editing, trying out these different actions I created, trying my editing style if you want. So hopefully that was helpful, guys.